You know all those points and lines and shit on perspective grids? Do you know what they're called and why they're there or how they work? In this video, I'm going to break down 4 concepts of perspective grids, explain what they do and how you can use them to create your own perspective grids. There'll be a bonus tutorial at the end of this video, so stick around to see that or use the chapters in the bottom to skip straight to it. Before I start with the first of these 4 concepts, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. So the first concept is the horizon line. That's the horizontal line that goes from one side to the other. And where this line goes will determine how high off the ground you are. If the horizon line is at the top of the page, then everything below it is stuff that we're looking down on. And if the horizon line is at the bottom of the page, then everything above it we're looking up at. To illustrate this, we'll grab this perspective grid and a box. This box is on the horizon line, which means we're looking straight at it. If the box dips below the horizon line, we're looking down on it. As it moves further away from the horizon line, we can see more of the top of the box. The same is true if we take that box and put it above our horizon line. This concept applies to everything, not just boxes. So if we take a cylindrical object and put it on the picture plane, then place some cross contour lines across it, you should notice that the area of the cylinder that's above the horizon line are curving away this way, and the ones below are curving this way. This helps to show that we're looking up at those curves and transitioning to looking down at these curves. And that's the basics of the horizon line, that's its job. Now onto the second concept. The station point is a bit more obscure because you don't actually place the station point on the canvas. The station point is the direction that you intend the viewer to be looking. It's the viewer's perspective. So if we take this 1-point perspective grid, the camera or the viewer is pointing towards this 1 point. For a 2-point perspective, the camera is pointing roughly in between these 2 points. Real talk, the station point doesn't matter that much. Not enough for you to get stressed about anyway. Now let's move on quickly to the third point in case any art teachers want to have a go at me for that last sentence. But honestly, the station point doesn't really matter. Vanishing points. The vanishing point or points are the little dots that you see on the horizon line. They always have to be on the horizon line. These points are the points that the lines that move away from you are drawn to. All the lines that go away from you have to meet at that point. So for example, in a 1-point perspective grid, we could draw train tracks or a corridor. The lines of the tracks or corridor that move away from us all converge or meet at this 1 point. Now for 2-point perspective, all the lines that move away from us to the left go towards this point, and all the lines that move away from us to the right go to this point. The lines that go up and down are not affected by these 2 points. But again, check out my perspective for beginners video because I talk about 3-point perspective, which does affect those up and down lines. Now before I move on to the 4th point, I want to talk about axes. I usually get confused about axes. When I say axes, I mean the X, Y, and Z axis. And when people talk about them, I always forget about which one's which. So I'll run through them now. The horizontal line, the horizon line, is determined by the Y axis, which is the up and the down. The station point is determined by the X axis, or the left and the right. And the vanishing points are determined by the Z axis, which is forward and back. Remember, these are the lines that go towards those vanishing points. And all 3 of these come together to create the illusion of perspective on a 2D surface. Got it? Good. And the last concept is the cone of vision. And this will determine where we put our vanishing points on the horizon line. Humans have a cone of vision of about 60 degrees, give or take. Now you can be super mathematical and figure out a 60-degree cone against a flat line if you really want to, but it's not necessary. You can also get super nerdy about cones of visions and study photography because then you can deal with different lenses because different lenses have different cones of visions. And that's not a bad idea. And if you know a photographer or photography is something that you're also interested in, then that can really help you understand this concept. But again, it's not 100% necessary. And for simplicity, you want your vanishing points to be at the edges of the picture plane. If you bring the vanishing points really close together, it's going to distort everything. And you may want that, maybe you don't. But it's a good idea for you to just experiment and bring the vanishing points closer and bring them further apart and just see what effect that has on the objects that you create within that perspective grid. And remember, for 1-point perspective where you've just got one vanishing point, where that point goes on the horizon line is pretty much where the camera is pointing. So the 4 main concepts. You got the horizon line that deals with the Y-axis up and down, the station points where you want the viewer to be looking. The vanishing points will determine the cone of vision and where those vanishing points sit on the horizon line. And the lines that the vanishing points affect are the ones along the Z-axis, so the ones that are going away from you. They're going away towards those vanishing points. It can be a bit much, this whole perspective business, but don't let it get to you too much. Start with 1-point perspective and create some really basic shapes, and then move on to 2-point perspective, and then if you're feeling really brave, move on to 3-point perspective, and then if you're a nutter, move on to 4-point perspective. If you made it this far or you skipped ahead, then thank you. This is how I made the perspective grids that you can download from my website in Photoshop. So step 1, grab the line tool on the left side of the screen and click and hold. Select the polygon tool and then move to the top of the screen. Make sure shape is selected, fill is set to none, and the stroke is set to 1 pixel. Move along to this box which sets the number of points on the polygon. Enter a number between 50 and 100 and then click the cog icon. Make sure your settings look like this. For some versions of Photoshop, the star percentage might need to be 99%, so if yours looks different, then that might be the reason for it. Otherwise, make sure it's 1%. When you've got these settings, then you need to draw a horizontal line for your horizon line, then pick a spot for your vanishing point and click and drag while you've got the polygon tool selected. Hold shift so that it's uniform and drag until the lines cover the picture plane. You may need to go off the screen a bit and it can be a little bit fiddly, but once the lines cover everything, then let go of the mouse and apply it. You now have a 1-point perspective grid. You can duplicate this shape and throw it on the other side of the horizon line and you have a 2-point grid. Perspective can get really complicated in a hurry, so I hope I helped simplify some of the core concepts. Remember that with art you can watch a million videos and read 1,000 books and you still may not fully understand the concepts that are being explained. The best way to get better is to do it yourself. Use this video to create some of your own perspective grids and then put some shapes in it and it will become clearer over time. Try and have fun with it and be patient with yourself. You will get it for sure. If I can understand it basically, then you definitely can. I've been Brinkley, have fun drawing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Did you know I have a website? It's got my comics, illustrations, and my blog, which is updated weekly. It also has free downloadable resources for beginners like perspective grids, tutorials and things like value, as well as my own custom brush packs. Did I mention they're free? They're free! Check it out in the description and sign up to my email address so you can be the first ones to see the updates.